I start with welcome everyone, and we have to explain something. First of all, the most important thing we have to say is about the feelings of Mr. Mingo. He suffered for many years, being a suspect in the harbor. It's necessary to explain how the investigations in the harbor started because everyone and the whole community thinks that Mingo was the big fish they were looking for in the harbor malversations. But you all have heard of the name Zeebeck. You all have heard of the claim that is put down at this moment by Zeebeck for $100 million. It's in the media already. Originally, we show that the investigation from the public prosecutor was intended to go after the claim of Zeebeck in those days from $10 million with the harbor. Zeebeck thought that they were frustrated by the harbor, and we have some articles in the newspapers, and we have an article of Price Waterhouse saying that there is something going on in the harbor that's not normal. The name of Mingo was not mentioned. After all the investigations, they finally came after 1 year that there was something wrong with local entrepreneurs who get paid for carrying sand out of the way. In that moment, Mingo came on board, but I want to clarify that the whole investigation did not start on the purpose of Mingo, but Mingo was a side catch from the case and the complaint that was filed by Zeebeck. To make you understand that it is true, the public prosecutor did the request by the appeal court to open the investigations over there, and the prosecutor also requested the appeal court to suspend Mingo during the time of the investigations. That was part of the court with the request of the public prosecutor. The court rejected the request from the public prosecutor to do the investigations in the harbor, and the prosecutor went in cassatie, what we call in Holland, by the Supreme Court. Recently, we defended our case because Mingo was never invited by the appeal court to be suspended. It means that you sit home, you're an employee from the Daily Herald, from the newsletter, and then out of a sudden you hear that the court has suspended you. That's not possible. That was our part in the cassatie by the cassatie request from the public prosecutor. Our lawyer, my office, and our lawyer in Holland applied an incidental cassatie, means that we did not agree with the request from the public prosecutor in the Supreme Court. Finally, it ended up that the Attorney General make an advice for the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to come with a verdict if they really, yes or no, will open the investigations in the harbor. But very important is to mention that in the documents there, the public prosecutor said, we offered Mr. Mingo as a victim, but the real bad people in the harbor are Theo Helliger and Ton van Koten. That's on page 22, 23 from the cassatie memory. That is not a fishing expedition, that is in writing. I make a quote from the letter from the prosecutor. Not Mingo, but other people are the rotting apples in the basket of the harbor. Now we are here. Now we're here, and the case went in appeal, and Mingo was set free because of the defense by his lawyer. Now we have sit Mr. Mingo here, and I think all of you want to know how he is doing now. Look at him, how he is doing. Talk with him, how he is doing and how he is feeling after years to get totally down in the community, to get totally down in the society and by the harbor, but also by the cruise companies. We have a man from the soul, who was mitigated, cut off his head, and had no chance to exist or no future anymore. I give him now a few minutes the time to tell about how he felt in those days, how his family felt, and afterwards I will tell you how we continue legally. But some words from him should have been told. Tell the public how you feel, where you are, and how you go.
Mr. Merx, thank you for those the introductory words. I think feeling-wise, I think most of the public knows I've been on the media. Emotional, not emotional. Today here, of course, I'm happy to see the media, by the way. Thank you guys. It's been a long time. Some of the faces, I got a comment that, I don't call or pick up my phone, in 5 years going through this hell. But today I can assure you I will pick up your phone anytime you call. That's from PJ2. What's your name again? Trevor. Sorry for my apologies. My apologies. Also, I want to thank the Daily Herald, the media houses to be here. It's important because I underestimated, because I get a lot of questions from the public that I've been quiet for the last 5 years. And that's one of the reasons why I'm actually sitting here with Mr. Merx to give an explanation. For me, very important is that I bring stability home for my family. That's one. Number two, I have to move on with my life. It basically also means I need to close part one. And that's why we're sitting here as well with Mr. Merx. I need to close off that era of my life. I've given a lot. I've built a Habour from, let's say, $7 million company to a $50 million company. That has a value. And I said it before, I just want justice. I want to get what I want, deserve. That's why we're sitting here. I'm a bit emotional, but after 5 years, I expect at least a response from government or the parties who should solve this, to give a little input. There has been some discussions with government, nothing formal. Mr. Merx has sent them a letter on the 19th of August. Today is the 22nd of September, and he got no formal response whatsoever. And that's one of the reasons we're sitting here as well. I hope that suffices or that brings some satisfaction or where I stand. But I think as Mark Mingo, most of the people know, I've been on different shows. Don't be angry with me, media. I had to pick some shows to give a very detailed output. I know the Daily Herald requested that as well. My apologies for that. But for me, I want to move on with my life. And the only way I can move on, Mark Mingo can move on with his life, is to close part one. And that is why we're sitting here. I am pro-settlement, to settle this out of court, just in a closed door like how we're sitting here. But also Mr. Merx have deadlines, which he will explain as well. One of the deadlines has passed already 2 days ago. The claim for the criminal claim that has been put in. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Merx, but he will come back on that. I don't want to cross. There's an agenda, so I don't want to cross that. But that is basically why we are doing this. This again is not any show from my side. I just want to move on with my life.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mingo, for the explanation. Are there questions on that part? Yeah. Okay.
Ms.
That,
Mingo, can you explain, when you made a harbor from a company that went from 7 to 50 million and you do business in the harbor, for the outside world it's like a fort. So what is it working in the harbor? For instance, why is Alegria a resort registered in the harbor? What is the whole situation with Zeebeck? What is these companies there and what are the companies that you're doing business with? For instance, the person that was also trialed has a security company that's still on the government budget. They're still doing business with him. So he's convicted, but this continues. So what is the situation really? Because you said you want to be free, but at the same time you have to, or you do business with people that are convicted. You're on radio shows with people that have had their cases. And although in some cases they're acquitted, that doesn't mean that they have completely clean hands in other
But I'm doing
things.
business. I'm not at a port anymore.
No, not but at the time, can you explain
oh, at the time.
how that worked?
Okay, let's just back up here because you asked me a lot of questions in one shot. First thing of
But
all,
but 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 let me explain this in one shot. The most remarkable way how it went in the harbor was the picture in the Daily Herald. Remember that picture in the Daily Herald where you see France, where you see Arindel, and you see Mingo writing. Mingo having his glasses covered, and on the back of him you see Arindel and you see France. That picture give all your answers. It was him working in the front and have people in the back of him making the deal. Your 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 man or woman who is making that picture compromised 5 years of what happened there. Mingo is working, you see him on the front with a pen, and at the back you see two people doing business with each other in the harbor in front. Is that more or less what you wanted to explain?
well, I like to add on it because look, the question posed by the Herald it's a and I give very short. When you do business in a harbor, you said it's a fort. It is like a fort because you have to protect U.S. interest. Business we do is usually business with U.S. companies or European companies, the cargo lines, cruise lines. But everything has a process. We have audits. We have more audits, I think, than any other government-owned company. But end of the day, as a CEO, when you sign certain documents or you do certain things, you make sure that everything, all the information you need is there. What happens in the back end is what Cora Marx is saying. I don't know what these people do after 5, 6. I know I'm the first and was, I think, the first CEO who passed the A screening. But don't forget, I always brought up that there needs to be more screening done with third parties. That was never answered by government. So, but I don't want to go into that detail. Maybe we can have another meeting to go in that details. Those details I have. I think for today is concerning what Mr. Merx wants to explain is how do we move on from here? Because I have to move on. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of things happening in the back end, which I'm not going to talk about. But I leave the word again to Mr. Merx.
I think we have a separate invitation from you to have a separate interview about the background and that kind of things. But the background is already explained by me in headlines. More details are not necessary. I just want the public to have, not to focus on him only. Your picture from your paper, you give a good idea what happened there and what happened in his back. He is just a side catch. But we continue. If there are more questions for Mr. Mingo at this moment, no, then I continue with the legal thing. So we have the introduction, we have the word of Mr. Mingo, and then you have to hear me again. Maybe it's boring, but just listen to me. We agreed to come with some compensation. Mr. Mingo suffered a lot. And we have prepared with the assistance of Dutch lawyers, a multi-million dollar claim. A multi-million dollar claim. The multi-million dollar claim exists of they fire him as a statutory director by the government. Let me explain you shortly, not to make it too difficult, but for the people to understand. You are or an employee or you are a statutory director. The mistake the Habour and the government made was they named him a statutory director. But he was working there since
2002.
2002. The law changed, Book 2 changed in 2004. It means that all the directors before have a labor agreement. That's very important to understand because every director after that can be nominated and be fired by the shareholders. The shareholders fired Mingo, but they have no right to fire him because he has a labor agreement. He has the right to go to court. It was denied by all the big lawyers and the big boys. The Habour had international lawyers to confirm it, but we persist with the idea he is an employee, and we went to court after the unlawfully dismissal by, in those days, the Minister of Theatre. Then we have also the role of the supervisory board in the whole thing. The supervisory board should have told the shareholder, and that's government, not to fire him because it's the wrong way they are going. But the supervisory board agreed with the government to fire him as a statutory director. Then we went to the court, to the civil lawyer, and the civil lawyer had no other chance than to dismiss the labor agreement. Please pay attention. You cannot dismiss what is not there. If the judge was of the opinion it was a statutory agreement, the judge would say that he was not competent, not authorized to dismiss him. But he is dismissed because at that moment there were enough reasons, because he was convicted already and he was in appeal. That means that this court case is still coming up, will have consequences for his claim as an employee. The normal claim for an employee is what we call the formula of the judges, and that is the number of the years you work there times the monthly salary, and with a factor. A factor is 0 or the factor is maximum 2. It depends on if it is to if you can blame the employee or the employer. The factor goes up and goes down. Imagine that he works there for 10 years for $100. That's 10 times 100 is 1,000, and then the factor makes it 2,000 or makes it 4,000 with the factor 2 maximum, or it makes it 2,000. There is a reason that the Habour made a lot of mistakes in the course of the whole investigation. It is also said that we do not agree, and we possibly will have a complaint against the prosecutor. That's unique because that is not the first time a prosecutor personally is held responsible, but in this case we have 7 prosecutors. Going up, coming down, gambling with the Habour. Who is going to fire Mingo? if you do the criminal case, then we have an easy job in the court. Nor the prosecutors say, I do not have enough proof of evidence. You do the civil case, and when you have won the civil case, we finish him with a criminal case. These things are documented in documents. These things are part of the conversation at the Supreme Court at this moment in The Hague. It was not a fair decision of none of the 7 prosecutors. He is probably guilty because we have enough of evidence. It was a game between the Habour and the public prosecutor. Who is going first to cut his head off? He lost in first instance, but he came back. After this story was told in the appeal court, he came back as a survival man. So there's a possibility that we do the unique situation. We're going to have one of these prosecutors come forward and stop gambling who is the suspect, who is not the suspect, who we bring in court. Just if you have the facts that someone committed a crime, you should bring him in court. But you should not deal with the Habour who's going first to kill him. Then Mr. Mingo also in his labor agreement has a clause that the Habour will take care of his expenses for his legal expenses. After Mingo was in the bench for the sinners, in the bench of the sinners, let me call it like that, the Habour said, okay, we do not pay anything anymore from our insurance company for your legal defense. From that moment on, Mingo has to pay all the lawyers he needed by himself. But do not forget, as I told you, the civil case is still running, and in the civil case we also applied for compensation for all the legal fees that he is insured for. That's one of the claims coming up also. The next claim is, what do we do with the pension of Mingo? Mingo is fired as an employee. If he would have fulfilled till he was 65 his contract, then he would get and go on pension. That's interrupted now. I only can tell you that's a multi-million-dollar claim. We're gonna go for it. Then we have the loss of his income, and he has to decide how to come back in the market. What job can we offer him? Is there someone who wants him? He started, paid by himself, a new study. He's studying law. Understandable he's studying law, because he saw how injustice was done during his period. But that means that still missing the claim for all the years for his salary. We go for it. That's a multi-dollar claim also. Then we have the government. The government also has to pay for the expenses for the lawyer and for the time that he was arrested. He was arrested 22 days in separation. And separation means that you cannot talk, you cannot have any contact with your environment anymore. That claim is already in court. 2 claims already had to be done 3 months after the verdict. The 3 months after the verdict was the 17th of this month. Those claims are already in. Beside that, he lost his house. the prosecutor put a lien on his house and on a property of land. 14 days before the outcome came, the prosecutor sold his house under the market price. Also, that is going to be a claim. Next to it, there was a claim against Mr. Mingo for $5 million. That was based on what he fraudulent made with this crime. That's a separate claim. That separate claim was appointed in court last year in November. We had a feeling that there's something like a complot. Yeah, complot? Is that the right word?
Conspiracy.
A conspiracy between the prosecutor and the system. Because you only can come with this claim 2 years after the verdict. The verdict expired in January 22. So why the prosecutor is coming out of a sudden with a rush to come with this claim? We refused to go to that court case. We refused.
Ontnemingszaak.
The ontneming. We refused to go, and he got sentenced by absence. And luckily, he was set free, so that claim is gone also. But I want to show you one part of that claim that is very suspicious, very strange. The police officers found a money transfer between him and his 17-year-old son in Switzerland. If you pay that money to your son in Switzerland, they can see it, that you have a lot of money, and you transfer it to your family or girlfriend, Mr. Trump did, or to other people. That means that you are taking the money that you make in the harbor, fraudulent, and send it to someone else. But don't be surprised, because I went to the census by myself. He has no son of 17 years, and he has no one studying in Switzerland. So the accusations are false. But I came up with 5 million. The claim now is over. We did not go because we felt something was wrong in it. Now the claim is over and it is done. Mr. Mingo is here. I represent him to you. Like Pontius Pilatus represented Jesus to the public. But I do not nail him on the cross. I gave him to you and I gave him back to the community. Mr. Mingo.
You know,
Wait. If there are questions, let me first see if there are questions.
That last part, how did you come to know about that? About the account in Switzerland and this claim that you have?
It's part of the dossier. It's part of the criminal dossier. The RST does.
Of course, I went.
Yeah, he went. But I think what you will see, and maybe it's better to do a follow-up meeting on that with yourself.
No. This is very important for the whole community to know how it works. The police have an intelligence service, a secret service. And it's good that they have it. And they monitor where some people go. If they write it down, there's no doubt for the judge and no doubt for the prosecutor it's the truth. But I went to the census. I even did not ask him. Because he could tell me a story I do not believe. I'm a lawyer. I've been a public prosecutor before. Nothing is the truth unless I have the proof. I went to the census to see his status, his civil status. He has 2 children living with his wife in Holland. No
Ex-wife.
one 17 years and no one studying in Switzerland. And we wanted to bring that forward on the November court case, but we did not go there because we thought it was a saving action. But here you see how it can go in life if the lawyer is not um, keen enough to check what is in the process verbal.
But was it Switzerland or the US?
Say what?
Was it Switzerland or the US that they said the money was taken?
Was it was
I
Switzerland?
think it was the US, but it was a TCI, very general. But
Right.
the
Yeah.
naming what you have in that is they call it TCIs,
Yeah,
and that's
TCI.
part of the dossier. So if those TCIs are not checked by the lawyer, and you don't look at those things, but those they trigger, let's say, a criminal investigation or criminal case. So the criminal cases start with TCIs, and I've learned in law school that a dossier moet heilig zijn, a dossier should be clean and holy, but it was not. That's what Mr. Merx is explaining as well.
So
Yeah.
only when you got the process verbal, then you saw all what was lined up.
Only.
And was like, wow,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah,
in
yeah.
there?
I work like this. I see the process verbal, I see the file from the prosecutor, and I see the charges, and I start to compare what is in the charges and what is in the criminal record. If that does not fit, or if I have doubts, then I have to look in my books, in the jurisprudence, with my colleagues, to find out. And we know Mingo. We know everything from him. But we also know in general he has no son of 17 years. We all know that. But to tell the judge that we all know that, the judge will say, Mr. Max, you talk like a comedian. You have to prove it. I went without telling him anything to the census, and I got the proof he has no son of 17 years. And if I call it Switzerland and it should be the US, okay, you have a point. But the main question is, can you have an investigation done on just assumes? That's part of the file from Mingo also.
Can I just add something, Mr. Merx? That's also one of the reasons, maybe the public should know, that I kept my silence for 22 days. I said this doesn't add up. Because how it works, you get arrested, and then your lawyer only gets pieces of documents. You don't get the whole dossier. So you get pieces, and then you say, but. So that is how it went, and that's one of the main reasons why I said nothing for 22 days. Thereafter, I fully cooperated with the judge's investigation, prosecutor.
In those
Okay.
22 days, already your house was sold.
No, that happened.
No,
That happened only last
14
year.
that
That
happened
happened
last
last
year.
year.
Yeah, but also the confiscation of the house was not done at the moment what the investigation, but was done
Only
last year also.
That's strange.
So it triggers me there's something wrong, because if I am a prosecutor and I do an investigation and I find 25,000, I do not put them on the side and I confiscate them next year. I confiscate them at the moment I do the investigation.
I was the only suspect, there was geen beslaglegging, niets.
Niks. So I was surprised that he has to go in court for a beslaglegging. And then I told him, where is the file? We don't have a file. But there was a court case. A court case without a file. It's a murder without a body.
Can
Next
you
question.
A timeline
What timeline?
of what took place when? Because that's very important to see the timeline.
The timeline is that he was arrested
On the 9th of June, maybe I can add because I
9th
know
of
my
June
head.
in
9th of June, 2017.
2017.
Released 22 days after.
It's not important.
Yeah.
The timeline is that the confiscation of the house was in 2021. In 2021. And then they want to have a court case in the same month. And we refused because we felt it's not correct what's going on. That's a unicum that we refused to go to the court.
And on
But-
what day did you hear that you were fired from your job?
April
Uh,
April 2020, 2014, 2020.
So 3 years after.
Yeah, 3 years after. This has been going on. Yes, I had lawyers, because don't forget I had different lawyers. I had a labor lawyer, then you had an inquiry, then we had a first lawyer. Now, then Mr. Merx came on board, who put it together. I want to thank him and his team. He put it together and saw all of those, because it's very difficult, because as CEO, I'm very technical, and then you try to explain this to people. You have so much documents. Look, I have a database. My database is bigger than a Habour.
okay,
And so,
the file is 33 organizers like the yellow one. 33 organizers. It's next door. You can make a picture.
so you have your file, your information, your details. I mean, I would be willing to answer all your questions, what you question me. I have everything well documented. We even have correspondence from the U.S. government, from a previous public prosecutor in Florida, who is actually saying you're being set up in black and white. That I'm not going to share today, because this part here is maybe only 1/10 of the claim of Mr. Merx. Everything I have is in writing. Everything.
Okay.
So,
Next question, please. That was. How do you?
you didn't see me for 5 years. What were the questions? Oh,
No, no.
okay.
If there are no more questions, I would say, okay, we finish this session, and I hope that we fulfill the wish of the public to come with clarity. We do not want to take revenge. That's not my style. But justice should be done, and in a fair way. Thank you for coming.
Just to be clear, you are filing a claim against government and also against the prosecutor's office.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, we are intending, we have filed already, tegen het land for the cost, for the expenses of the detention, and for the expenses for part of the lawyer's fee.
And what amount is that?
I do not open that demand, because like the prosecutors sometimes say, this case is under investigation. But if I talk about $1 million claims, then think
Talk
about it.
Tens of millions or?
No, tens of millions, that would be not enough. But
Yeah.
think about $3.5 to $5 million.
Look, I want to add on that. Don't corner Mr. Merx and saying a number. The number will not be determined by Mr. Merx or myself. We will bring in Mr. Ron Fahad, and we'll also bring in an expert company who is going to calculate that claim. So it can be 3, it can be 5. According to different cases, you follow the case of Poch in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
That was a multi-million-dollar claim. You also follow the million claim from the start in this Zambezi zaak. So, but the difference with this claim is, Mr. Merx and myself, we have everything in writing. We have all these reports, documents. Look, I don't even want to start there, but I can tell you, everything we say and bring forward, we will defend legally in front of judges or judge. And we have all the proof, we have all the evidence. And that's what it's about. Numbers, to go and
Okay.
call numbers, I don't believe that we should do that
Okay.
now.
Maybe we're asking because you have a claim, but it's to different entities. You have
Yeah.
government
Yeah,
and
we have
prosecutors,
government,
make
we
it
have
difficult.
we have the
So
Habour, we have the
What
government.
percentage is government? If you say about
No,
responsibility,
we only
and what
have
percentage is
we only
is
have a
Habour?
total picture. All of them together should come more or less a multi-million dollar. That's not over the 10 million. It's about
don't-
the 5.
Yeah, I still don't, I still, look, we're pushing us to say a number, but leave the experts deal with that. I think the expert
Yeah.
needs to do the calculation. That's how it goes. Any arbitration or fair settlement has to go in legal hands, and we take it from there. I know everybody wants, I think Mr. Merck said it right, ended right. It's a multi-million-dollar claim, and I said it in the media already. I'm not going to step down. This, we have enough. This is not let's say a Walt Disney type of setting here. This is a serious claim, and this also, I said on the media, this should not happen to any other CEO. So that's one of the reasons we came to give clarity. I'm being very non-emotional right now. It's a legal issue, and Mr. Merx, I have full confidence in Mr. Merx and his team, and also in Ron Farrar, the financial expert, who did a great job in the appeal case, also financially.
Mr. Mingo, do you want your job back?
Look, that is not up to me to decide. I told you too much has happened. I'm not going back to the Habour. Habour is in my blood. Everybody knows that. The cruise lines are trying to contact me, but I said, listen, first let's settle this so that we can move on. If I want my job back, I'm hearing rumors that they want to send me GB. I don't know about that, but that's not the discussion we're having. The discussion is to close off the agenda points as what Mr. Merx is covering.
Would you be open for that as a part of the settlement, that you take a position at a company like GB?
That is not up to me. That is up to government or to GB itself.
But the question is, would you be open to that? Would you be open to that as a part of the settlement?
Maybe yes, maybe no. It's everything is possible.
So how does that work? Because at the end of the day, the Habour is a government-owned company. So you have a case against the government. Would you still be willing to work for the government?
But that is not. I'll have to speak to Mr. Merx after this meeting. But it doesn't work, and that's what I'm saying again. And I'm giving you. You're right. You have to close this before you move on. There's a lot of word out there that I'm going to run next elections. I said no. I have never said that. I always said I need to close this part of my life, of my part of the case. I need to move on, and it's like this: the faster I get to work, the better for me and the better for everyone around me. I mean, my family has been hurting for the last 5 years. I need to make up for those 5 years. I mean, I lost over $1 million in assets, in value. I worked hard for that. I haven't stolen that.
I have a question.
So that's all. So to answer your question about GB, or I don't want to answer those kind of questions. I'm here for the claim, and we've decided, I believe, when we had a meeting 2 days ago, Mr. Marx has decided, myself as well, to proceed with the civil claim. That's the main reason. That's also why we're here to explain what's next.
In 17 years, 17 years is a long time to be a CEO. How much, roughly, have you contributed to the port, has contributed to this economy?
Look, there are words out there. I said it very straight. Look, the Habour itself has an income of 50 million a year, and you also have economic contribution. Those are in the reports from FCCA. You're talking between 400 and 500 million a year's economic contribution. So if you're talking, do the math. You just need to take the amount of passengers times how much they spend, and then you have it's multi-billion-dollar to the economy. Yes, that's correct.
Do you feel totally deceived by what you have contributed and where you is today?
No, I've passed that stage. It took me 3 years to get out of that hurdle. I also had some bad feelings about Daily Herald. I don't have them anymore. I think everybody has a right to ask critical questions. I'm open about it. One of the strong reports, which I ended my word in the Court of Appeal, and maybe you all, maybe the public as well as yourself, you should read the report, Commissie de Wit, Doing Things the Right Way. That report actually is saying that Habour is the best run company on the island, but it also answers certain questions you're bringing up. What about criminality? What about screening third parties? How do you deal with, you said it, certain individuals who have companies who maybe have a criminal record, etc., etc., etc. Those laws and those things are not really well executed. Het wordt niet goed gehandhaafd. Dat staat ook in, sorry for Dutch, let me go back to the English. But if you take that report, the report from Commissie de Wit, I've also showed that very shortly to the appeals court, and you can see it's clear. And there were also improvements. There's a report, the audit report. If you read that, that's going to be part of our claim as well. If you read that, the board of directors and the shareholder, they're wiped out by that report from Ernst & Young. They're wiped out.
Okay. Next question.
Knowing government track record when it comes to court case and not paying, even when they have a verdict against them, what is your strategy for dealing with that possibility? Because you're talking multi-million-dollar claim, but you might be running into a multi-million-year court case dealing with government and even winning, and they're not paying.
Oh, yeah, you know, that's always a problem. I see that in my practice with collections. If people come to me and someone owes them money and they start collections, it has to go to court. And it has to go to court, and it takes some time to go answer and proof of evidence. And then finally, the chicken has no feather anymore. But that is a fact in real life. That happens to everyone. But if the government is found guilty and they do not want to pay, that happens, then we will ask the judge to force the government to pay. That's a possibility. But the first thing in life is that this is a case for St. Martin, shows we are not afraid. We are not afraid. A lot of people in St. Martin are afraid, okay, if I go here, if I go there, then I'm gonna have that politician against me, maybe my car will not be inspected anymore. All these rumors are off now. We go legally to get him free, and we go legally to get him compensated. That's the most shortest way to explain these things. More questions? Thank you for coming. It took us 45 minutes to explain and to have the questions answered. I hope all of you are satisfied with that we at least found the guts to tell the public over the media what we feel and what we're going to do. Thank you.